What if the best classroom had no walls, just soil, sunlight, and endless possibility? In this episode of the Detour Degree, we explore how gardening can grow more than vegetables. It grows curiosity, resilience, and real-world learning. From planting seeds to sparking minds, this is education rooted in nature. Let's listen in with special guest, Denise Dunn. Hello, this is Naka, and welcome to the Detour Degree. Today we have a special guest, Denise Dunn. How are you doing today, Denise?
I'm doing great, Naka. Thank you so much for asking.
Well, it's awesome that we're talking about gardening today. But before we get into the gardening, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, as you stated, my name is Denise. I usually go by Niesy. That's what people call me, and that's all my friends, as well as on social media. But I am a technical writer by trade, and my work of my heart, two things actually, working with the alumni of my school, Xavier University of Louisiana, as well as gardening. So heavy on the gardening.
It's great that you garden, and I think for many of us, we might think of gardening like some plants to make our landscaping look good, or maybe we go to the farmer's market and we see a couple of fruits and vegetables, but you are really into gardening in all aspects of it. Can you tell me how you got started in gardening and how you think it could be used as an educational tool?
Sure. Well, I actually got started in gardening as you described. I purchased a home, and I wanted the front of my house to look amazing. I wanted it to be beautiful, but I also wanted it to be a space for me that I felt really comfortable and really at home. And for me, that's surrounding myself with beautiful things like greenery. So I really got started with gardening with flowers and updating my landscape. And then when the pancetta happened, I got more into fruits and vegetables and like really digging down into, I want all the gardening things, chickens and everything. In terms of education, I feel that if students are able to connect to gardening, like connecting to life outside you, because it really teaches you patience. I have a level of peace when I'm in the garden. I get dirty, I get sweaty, but I am so content and relaxed in those moments. And so I think it can be a place for students who are dealing with school stress and things like that, that you're able to find that centeredness and ground yourself with soil and dirt and experience life, learning about life and not just the aspects of reading, writing, arithmetic.
Well, it's interesting because when I think about gardening, I think of how could you incorporate different subjects such as math, such as reading, such as even social studies. And I think particularly because when students are in four walls of a classroom, they don't think about that outside there are these learning experiences that in many ways could be inexpensive because it's just going outside, getting dirty with some soil and going from there. Is that the type of experience that you had? Because you had a learning experience, a learning curve to understand
100%. I've had a learning curve. So it's really learning to work with nature. You're not just going to go out there and have plants. I would tell people, even like houseplants, was one of the things I was teaching about this morning because I do a morning show on one of the social media channels. And what I was telling people is that these are tropical plants that live in our homes because they're tropical environments, right? And so we're taking them out of their natural environment and asking them to thrive here. And so to do that, you have to give them the things that make sense. So that's where reading comprehension definitely comes into place, because if you're telling me it needs 6 to 8 hours of sun, okay, well, where is the area that gets 6 to 8 hours of sun? So I'm having to go out and measure that. I'm having to make sure that I don't overwater this one, but don't underwater that one. So you're going to have an understanding of measurements. You're going to have to look into the chemistry of things, because with planting food, and that's why I said you're working with nature, if you're planting something delicious, it's not just that you want to eat it, it's that everything else wants to eat it too. So,
like rabbits, deer, insects.
100%. I am not a fan of the rabbits
Thank
anymore.
you, Denise.
Not even just the rabbits. You know what's been like the worst for me? The squirrels. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah,
I used to think
squirrels.
I thought they were so cute.
No, squirrels are
I would
evil.
fight a squirrel to, like, no, you're trying to get my peaches? No.
Oh
No.
yeah. They
No.
love peaches. Apples too. You'd be surprised.
Oh no, I would not be surprised. They dig up when I plant bulbs, they dig those up, they eat those too. So they've gotten my hyacinths, they've gotten my tulips, things that are just pretty. They just come along and eat that. So that's where the chemistry and things like that can come in. This plant companions really well with this plant because it's deterrent for these pests, these insects that might come in. Or I love hostas, but maybe I don't want to plant a hosta in the front yard because that's candy for the deer. I have to plant something else that works well with them. So in addition to the reading comprehension, there's definitely some chemistry and understanding measurements and the math portion as well, because if you're putting any types of amendments down or using things, it's going to ask you to measure how much. So you're still using all of those tools.
I'm even thinking about math with design as well, right? Because if you're having to design a certain garden bed, or you're having to measure the distance between plants, does that come into having a healthy garden space, whether that's flowers or food?
It definitely does. I grow most of my food in containers because I am in a small space. But there is such a thing called square foot gardening, where you're putting only this plant and this plant in the square foot section. The reason why is because if you think about carrots grow underground, so you're not going to see them. If you put a lot of seeds out, you have this container size, and they're telling you can only grow this many carrots within a certain area. If you put more carrots in, they will probably still grow, but you're going to get teeny tiny carrots as opposed to those nice large carrots that you're looking for. So it makes sense to pay attention to the amount of space that you have, just so your plant can thrive and be its best self.
And I would wonder too about geography. You are in a specific geographic region. Why is that important? And when I think about social studies or even younger students learning about geography, how does that play a part into gardening?
Well, I garden by hardiness zones. So the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, has set up plant hardiness zones. And what that is measuring is your lowest frost date, your average frost date temperature. Some plants will thrive in areas like that. So I love gardening up here because I can have things like bulbs, like hyacinth, because they need a cold stratification period. So they have to have a period of time where it is cold enough that they can be able to bloom the next year. Where I'm from in Texas, these things would not grow because unless I'm going to put them in the refrigerator for a period of time, I'm not going to get that cold stratification period that I need because it's just not going to get cold enough in South Texas.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Definitely. Texas is very hot. Do you know how many hardiness zones there are?
I believe there are about 11.
Okay.
And between them, it's about 20 degrees.
Okay.
So I'm in hardiness zone 7B, and there are certain things that I can still grow. So at this time of year, we're all kind of summer gardeners. There's things that we can grow, but there are things that will come back for me that someone in a lower zone may not see come back. My rosemary will come back. My sage will come back. Somebody in zone 3, their lowest frost might be at about 20 degrees.
Okay.
They're not going to see things come back in the same way that I will. In the same way, I really love dahlias, beautiful flowers. I can't get them to come back for me here because it gets too cold. But if you go 2 to 3 zones up, they probably can get them to winter over and come back for them.
And so from what I hear you saying, like a great entry point, it sounds like would be some type of introduction either through a video or maybe a book or a picture book for younger students in order to get to the gardening? Like it just can't be, let's go outside and throw some seeds in the ground. There has to be a process. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm going to say no. I
Oh,
am 100% on the side of let's throw some seeds in the ground and like experiential learning. I just feel that you have some skin in the game. This is my seed. I've got some soil. I'm taking care of it. So even if you start in a cup, and we give younger people, a lot of times we'll give them a sunflower seed because they grow really, really quickly. It's an easy win. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just grew an 8-foot plant from this little seed, right? We all eat sunflower seeds. This is what will grow our giant sunflowers depending on the variety. And so I am 100% on the side of the experiential learning, but actually getting your hands dirty, getting in there and understanding, okay, well, you did this, you just put it in dirt as opposed to soil. So what do you think is going to happen with that? And really letting people reason it out. Like if you're thirsty, and I gave you some water, I don't expect you to take that water and pour it on your head, right? That's not going to nourish you. That's not going to quench your thirst. You need to drink it through your throat. Same for plants. If our plant is thirsty, we probably don't want to just pour water on the top of the leaves, but maybe get down to where the roots are, where it's going to be able to take in those nutrients.
okay. So just diving in there, that's interesting. So, because I'm like a process person, I'll be the one looking at, okay, let's open the book. Let's see what type of seed, what type of soil, because you mentioned the difference between soil and dirt. And those are
Yeah.
the type of things that I'm curious about and how students could learn from this. So there are different types of dirt. That's what you're telling
Oh,
me.
100%. So here's the thing. Depending on what your dirt is like, you might be able to do that. The nice thing about, so we look at plants and trees that are growing outside, they're getting their nutrients from the soil. So there's earthworms in there, hopefully, that's helping process things and breaking things down. Hopefully there's not a lot of chemicals out there. It's got a nice loamy feel so that the roots can stretch out and find what it needs. It can stretch out and get more water if it needs to. So the soil is going to have nutrients in it. So as I explained before, I'm a container gardener. So as a container gardener, I am 100% responsible for the nutrients that my plants get because they're in a container, just like these house plants. I'm responsible for giving them food because their roots aren't able to reach out and pick up that decaying matter or all of those beneficial chemicals that they need to keep going that they would get from a healthy soil. So dirt, a lot of times you don't see things growing. It's like powder almost, a lot of it. You're going to need to amend your dirt so that you can have things be healthy and grow in it.
So is that why you see things like flower, is it flower soil or flower dirt? Like best for flowers or best for orchids or,
Well,
best for
yeah, because
gardening.
that's where you'll see some of those differences because orchid likes a now depending on where you are, I've been to Miami and I can see orchids just growing out of the trees. Now, if it tried to do that in my house, not so much. The difference between my house and outside in Miami is a much more humid environment. So I can only deal with the plants that are going to be happy in my environment. I'm not about to turn my humidity up to 78% or my heat
Okay.
or my heat in the house. I'm not going to keep it at 90 degrees so I can have nice, happy tropical plants. No, I'm going to need y'all to be okay at 72 degrees, and we're going to have our humidity level probably closer to 50 or lower, just so that I can live, right? And so that's one of the things when you're looking at the orchid bark. They want a chunkier soil. They want something that's quick draining. They don't want to hold on to water. Some of those soils, you'll see they're very compact and you can hold them in your hand. They'll hold on a little bit. Whereas a lot of other plants want something that's very, very chunky. With like orchids, you could try to do the same thing and it's just going to fall apart the moment you open your hands. They want a nice chunkier mix. Think about cacti
Mhm.
or any type of succulent like aloe vera. They want a quick draining soil. They have very shallow roots. And so they're not going to want to be in a huge pot with this very hard and compact soil. They want something that's going to be loose and drain easily. And they don't need a lot of space because their roots are going to stay kind of surface.
I can see a lesson where students are looking at the types of dirts, and maybe you have some types of plants, and they're making decisions about which types of plant best match with the types of soil. That's powerful learning for students.
Oh, I think it would be great for young people.
Mm-hmm. Would you say there will be a progression, because you talked about experiential learning, where like younger students are more about play, and then as they get older, it's more about sufficiency in gardening?
As an adult who gardens, I run into a lot of adults who are very removed from their food source. They don't even know that a strawberry starts out as a flower and that yellow part pushes out, or any of the berries, that they would like a lower pH soil. Because my blueberries or my gardenias or whatever might not thrive in this soil. They're looking for somewhere between 4.6 and 6.1. They want the soil to be there, but I have a more alkaline soil, less acidic. So I have to put amendments into it to get it to be more alkaline so that my plant can thrive, right? Because again, we're trying to adjust our area so that we can get this plant to thrive for us. I can see really getting into the pH levels at sending off for soil tests or doing their own soil tests and understanding I have this type of soil based on this pH level, what's going to really thrive in this.
That's amazing. So you talked about amendments. What are amendments?
When I talk about amending my soil, I have, let's say, soil A, and I want to amend my soil to be able to get it to grow whatever the thing is that I'm trying to grow. Or even something as simple as a lawn, which I'm not a huge fan of lawns. So a lot of people, once they really get into gardening, you're like, why are we putting all this water and chemicals into just keeping this monoculture type thing when permaculture is the thing? The grass is just one singular species that you're trying to keep going. It's a lot. Nature is going to fight you for that. I'm on the side of nature. When I even think about amending my grass, though, I'm going to put amendments in it to try to prevent grubs. I'm trying to prevent crabgrass. I'm trying to prevent anything that would keep my lawn from being this one monoculture. I just want it to be tall fescue. I don't want dandelions to come in. Or if I'm trying to add, what did I add this past year? I added hydrangea and I moved hostas around. And so my soil was very compact. I added humus to my soil to make it hold water a bit more. I added compost to add more nutrients into my soil because I was going to be planting more flowering things. And so it's going to need more nutrients. Anytime anything is flowering or producing a fruit for you, they are expending a huge amount of energy to push out this bloom or to push out this food. And so the more nutrients you can give it to be able to do that, the better.
Let's say I'm a teacher and I'm listening, I'm planning for the next school year. And it's like, yes, I want to garden. Are you thinking that they should start with something like a cup and a sunflower seed? Or should they dream bigger? What would you recommend or envision as a starting point?
I would say, let's go big. I would say it's dependent upon the age. I wouldn't say go out and build raised bed boxes and you're in kindergarten. That might be a bit much. I would start them out with a tomato seed or a sunflower seed because it's beautiful. The tomato or the lettuce is a great start for kids too because they can eat what they made and it's a very fast grower. So it's like, hey, I grew this and now I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor. So I would say something like that for younger people, but older kids, definitely go out and put up trellises. So you want to grow cucumbers or watermelon, they need something that they're going to trellis on, give them something to grow on. Or maybe you're going to grow loofah. You're going to maybe eat some, but the others you're going to use to have your own scrub brush in the shower. So just learning what that plant needs to thrive and be happy, and so that you can get what you need out of it too. I think that would be awesome. And are you just going to put that tomato plant out there, or are you going to give it a companion? How are you going to keep the other insects from eating what looks so delicious?
Well, and it's interesting that the types of not only gardening that you could do in a school, but also thinking about the realities of the different types of school systems. You have some school systems in urban areas where they are literally called concrete gardens. There isn't a lot of green. And so, in those cases, would it be something like raised beds, or would it be a container type of situation that they're putting in a certain area? Could it be just types of house plants? What would be your thinking there? I'm in that type of situation where there is no room to grow, but I want to provide some type of gardening experience for kids.
Yeah. I met a woman who is growing out of a window box in Brooklyn. That's all the space that she has. She opens her window and she has a little container, and she is able to put some things out there. So obviously not a huge garden, but I feel like if it's something that you're passionate about, or you're trying to feed yourself or your community, you can definitely find space for it. A lot of organizations would probably donate. When I think about homeowners, people in the community, I have a ridiculous amount of extra planters. I buy so many plants that I end up with all of these planters. So I can imagine that someone would donate that if it needed to go the way of a container garden. If there was space and there could be approval for it, I think raised beds would be amazing in that space. Learning how to take care of that space. How much egress do you need between one bed and another bed to be able to walk through? How much space do you need to be able to even reach? Are you going to build a raised bed that's 7 feet across? If so, how do you get to the plants in the middle? What's the optimal size that it would need to be? And that's kind of where their geometry would come into place, I guess.
That's amazing. Do you have other advice for schools or educators who want to start or perhaps expand a gardening or outdoor learning program if they associate gardening specifically with outdoor learning in general?
As a person who has houseplants, understand that they need light. And so if you do not have an outdoor space, that doesn't mean that you cannot grow things. I think teaching them how to build a terrarium where you're actually creating an ecosystem in a container would be awesome, just to have that understanding of what's needed to allow life to thrive. And us being part of this system, what do we need to contribute? I would love to see teachers embrace it. I think most people are removed from nature and their food source to the point where they don't even consider it. I had a discussion with someone and they were explaining their neighbor was buying lemons, and her friend looked out the window. She said, "Well, why are you buying lemons if you have a lemon tree?" And she said, "Oh, you can't just eat them like that. Don't they have to go through a process?"
Oh, wow.
Because people just don't know. We're used to our food source comes from a box. We drive to this box. We take everything that's beautifully arranged, and we're going to take this home with us, right? And we never question, like, well, why does this kale have no little holes in it? The insects don't want to eat it. Should I want to eat it? And we never ask ourselves these questions. But if we can relate it to the adults, to the teachers, then they can have this conversation with young people and ask them, what are their thoughts about it? Do they think it's a good idea? You can start in something as small as building your own little terrarium. You can grow a tomato in the house, but you're going to need a pollinator. Well, who's going to pollinate it if you don't have the bees inside? What are you going to do? You're going to hand pollinate it. And so even learning how that symbiotic relationship that we have with nature that we've removed ourselves from, we can still create that in a totally interior environment. It's going to be more difficult, but because I would like to see people go outside. I mean, that's my preference. But if there's no ability to do that, I think you could still do this inside.
I think that will be helpful for a lot of teachers who are interested in trying something new. I think it's great, as you mentioned, how you can relate it to science, math, even literacy. I think it's so essential because right now we just do see a lot of test prep, open a book. That's all we have time for. And if they can find ways to create time for this type of learning, I think it could be beneficial beyond just that one day or one couple of months or even a year inside of a classroom. So thank you for that advice. What do you think about gardening and the deeper connection that students could create between their communities and the environment?
I imagine that if students were to create a garden environment at their school, that they might be able to get their parents involved or other people in their community. In most communities, there's something called a master gardener program. It's usually a volunteer program, but people who've gone through extensive learning to learn more about gardening and sewage systems and how we would marry those things together to have a garden in an area. I think it could bring generational change in terms of the interaction between older and younger generations, because there's a lot to be shared there. And some in the older generation might have some of that additional knowledge that younger people who have only experienced their food through the grocery store could benefit from.
When you said that, it did make me think about how, as an educator, I heard stories where the lunches, you get the fruit cups, and the fruit cup is the only way that certain kids knew fruits. So they had never even had a whole fruit or know what this looks like because this is the only time they had fruit. And I found that to be just unfortunate. The times I remember in gardening, it's like nothing like a fresh piece of fruit that's plucked off of a tree, or you're getting something from your garden and it's on your plate.
Yeah.
It's just so fresh and it tastes so good. And I'm wondering, with that community connection, have you seen or experienced any community gardens that perhaps students and teachers could be involved with that could help support their efforts, particularly if they're in areas or in districts without a lot of land for
Oh, definitely.
gardening?
I would definitely say I've experienced that. I live in the Washington, D.C. area where land is very much at a premium. So there's not as much space as where I'm used to out in Texas. It's a much more compact environment. So I've seen a lot of community gardens. I actually visited one for my birthday this year, and they were teaching about how to grow different things. They had a huge rosemary plant out there. They were growing their own strawberries. They gave us tomato plants that we could take home for free. And they're like, yeah, you want a tomato plant? You're just going to give me a free plant? Yes. So that they were talking about composting and how we're not just throwing our food scraps in the garbage and to the refuse, but literally this banana, this piece of tomato, leftover meat bone, all of these things, the grass clippings, the paper that you throw away, all of these things can compost, can break down, and we get our worms in there that are so helpful. And this is soil. This is a nutrient dense amount of soil is what it turns into, the compost. And I think that we could definitely have that. I think right now we're in this period of disconnection. We're disconnected from our food source. We're disconnected from each other. A lot of us are even disconnected from ourselves, and we're trying to figure ourselves out. And so I just see gardening as an opportunity for us to make those connections. You're talking to people, you're getting advice on germination rates. Hey, I'm having this problem with my plant and I'm seeing some yellowing on the leaves. Seems like you've got some magnesium problems, and maybe you just need to use some Epsom salt so that your plants can do a better uptake. Or you're seeing yellowing leaves and dark green veins. What's going on with my plant? Sounds like an iron problem. And it's just all of these things that we can share this bit of information, because what I can say I have having gardened this long now, is experience that I can share with others. And I'm still looking for more experienced gardeners to share with me. And if we're doing that, what we're doing is making connections. And I think that would be wonderful in our communities and something we really need.
That's awesome. I'm thinking about innovation. And many times when we think about innovation in technology, gardening as something that is hands on in terms of tools, the technology is probably thousands of years old. So you don't necessarily think of it as an innovation. So I want to present you with that question. Do you think that there are innovations related to gardening that can also relate to education? And I'm just throwing out something like project-based learning, but it could be something else that I'm not thinking about. Why are things and innovations that would be connected to gardening needed now more than ever?
Eggs cost $10 at the grocery store, and every time I open my app on my phone, it's telling me something else has been recalled, because these are a lot of the companies that produce our food, and I'm not going to go down the road of any specific company, but a lot of companies that are producing our food are monoculture environments. We're growing peaches, but we're only growing peaches. Or we're producing pistachios, but we're only producing pistachios. We're only producing romaine lettuce or different types of lettuce. The problem with doing that is that you're not getting things to work together. I underplant my tomatoes with a flower called lobularia or sweet alyssum, and they're wonderful beneficials together, because the tomato attracts the white moth and their larvae want to eat my tomato, which I don't want that. But the lobularia attract hoverflies, which eat the larva of that white moth. So while white moths aren't harmful, their children are. But these beneficials work together. And that's why it can't just be a monoculture environment. Between my tomatoes and my berries and all of these things working together, my flowers, with innovations, a lot of the things that I've seen is that they've found ways to use less water. They've got hydroponic systems that just are recycling water over and over, so you're not having to constantly pump new water in. And so that speaks to conservation. The way people have learned to trellis their plants or create these systems that instead of me having to have this large space, I can actually grow up. If you've ever seen garden towers, you can grow lots of pretty much everything. You can grow beans, you can grow strawberries, you can grow your lettuce, your herbs. And so we found smarter ways to garden. We just are needing to believe that we can employ them, and that the best source of nourishment for us is not coming from the box. It's coming from us in our home and being connected to that environment.
This has been such a great way to get additional knowledge about gardening. And when it comes to the Detour Degree, just a little background, I really did want to find different types of what I see as innovations out there in spaces that are educational, because my world is so focused on AI and emerging technologies that, like you said, with it's a disconnection involved. And if right now all the computers just happen to shut down, then what do? How do we learn? How do we grow? And so I really do appreciate the connections that you're bringing when it comes to the earth, through the land, and through the greenery, such as through with gardening. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. You're welcome.
Thanks. I do have some quick reflective bonus questions that we have here on the Detour Degree. And there are 3 really fun questions about your own learning path. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. What is one unexpected experience that taught you more than school ever could?
Related to gardening, I would say being comfortable with my plants passing along, watching them basically die, that they're not going to be here all year. And I respect that process. I respect the cycles of life in a way that I didn't before. I was talking to someone this morning as I was going through the garden, and one of the questions was, well, my green onions are turning yellow on the end. What's wrong with it? I said, well, it's nothing wrong with it. This is just what happens. They don't stay green and beautiful forever. They wither and they die. But your plant is healthy, right? You see all the other green onions, it's still putting out. Don't worry about this one. It's reached the end of its life, and that's okay. It's still going to thrive. It's going to move on. So I think I've gotten a very healthy respect for the cycles of life, watching my plants not make it.
That's powerful, though. I am a fan of actually giving small plants, such as succulents, away when I am at a location and I feel like, hey, let me leave a little gift because it's something that's alive. That's different from, a picked flower, which will wither. Yeah. Although some I've given them plants and they're like, you realize that soon this plant will transition because I kill plants, or can't have them survive. But I think that's powerful, the circle of life. Next question, who or what gave you permission to take a different route?
Excuse me. Excuse me. I would say I gave myself permission to take a different route. No one person said, oh, it's okay for you to want to garden. Gardening has given me a peace and a contentment that I don't get from anything else. And I think as we're constantly interacting with computers, we're at work and we're doing and we're doing and we're doing, we're going and we're going and we're going. And I was exhausted and I didn't know how to handle that. But every time I went outside in my garden, I was perfectly fine. I had a day that I wanted to change the trajectory of this flower bed. I wanted to change how it looked. I wanted to make it bigger and all of that. I spent over 8 hours outside in the summer digging this flower bed out and adding all this compost and soil to make it this longer, beautiful space and getting it organized. And at the end of the day, I was exhausted and I was sweaty. And I was so happy. I was so happy with what I had done. In a way, coming away from that, it didn't feel anything like what I've accomplished at work. And we've gotten accolades and things at work and certificates and people celebrate you. It did not feel the same as that day of me completing a flower bed. And it turned out the way I imagined in my head, and I did it. I put all the soil in and I was going to start to place my plants. And it was just the most wonderful feeling ever to me. So I would say I gave myself permission to let it be okay to not have to be at all the places doing all the things. It's perfectly fine to be content in a space. I am content sitting outside watching the bees go for the flowers. That makes me feel content, and that's 100% okay.
Thank you. I have one final question. If you could go back and give yourself, younger self, one detour to take, what would it be?
Yeah, I would definitely say that I should have gotten my hands in the dirt way earlier. I should have learned to connect with gardening and grounding, those things. I should have learned to appreciate looking at greenery in my house, because then it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, because you're looking at beautiful things that don't need you to do anything necessarily for them to be a beautiful thing. It's just how they're made. And it just automatically makes you feel more relaxed. I would have told myself that it's okay if you're not at all the events. You don't have to show up and volunteer for every committee. You don't have to go to all the parties. It's okay to stay home. It's okay to want to have your hands in the dirt and get dirty. That's perfectly fine. I would have told my younger self, it's okay to not be all the things in every woman. It's okay. Just relax. Go put your hands in the dirt and go get your peace, and understand that you need this peace and this rest more than that party.
Wow. Well, this has been a great conversation. I am so happy that we were able to make this happen. And I truly believe that people will come away from listening to this conversation with inspiration to go forth and create learning spaces related to gardening for their students or for their own learning journeys. So I appreciate you. Anything as we close out that you would want to leave us with your gardening journey?
I did want to say, when you said you give succulents to people, I would feel like that was some type of threat. If somebody gave me a succulent, why don't you like me? Oh, I'm terrible with those ones.
Those succulents are cute.
They're like, don't touch them too much. Wait, you're not touching it enough. What do you need?
They're so cute, though.
They're adorable. I don't know what did I do to you? Why are you treating me like that?
Man, okay, so when you get that succulent in the mail, it's not personal. It's not personal.
It is. So yeah, I was like, what? Succulent? No, why? That's hilarious. But yeah, I know people who are so great with them. I have a couple of them. I'm like, oh, I did it. I didn't really do it. I ignored them just enough that they're still here.
Well, thanks again. And we appreciate you for coming to the Detour Degree.
Thank you so much for having me. This was lovely.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Detour Degree. And thank you to Denise Dunn for your wonderful insights on gardening and education.